So he won the stage, but he didn't win the yellow jersey, but he won't be too worried about that. He did take more time out of Jan Ullrich, and not many people are doing that. Pantani beats Richard Virenque of France, so Italy gets a 1-0 victory over France there. Jan Ullrich third, Zabel finishing fourth. Overall, Jan Ullrich maintains that big lead of 6 minutes and 22 seconds. He's aiming at the winning margin now, by the way, of Pedro Delgado, who won by 7 minutes and 13 seconds back in 1988. Now, congratulations to Richard Virenque. He is the new King of the Mountains, 1997, for the 4th year in succession. Paul Sherwin is with him.
Mais quand même, vous avez rentré dans l'histoire du Tour parce que c'est presque gagné maintenant, la 4e victoire de suite dans le Grand Prix de la Montagne.
Oui. Avec les points que j'ai marqués aujourd'hui, le maillot à poids, il est encore pour moi pour la 4e fois de suite.
Et nous, on a fait un petit concours dans le village avant de l'arrivée. Toute la France est derrière un seul coureur, Richard Virenque.
Oui, je sais, je suis au courant et je les entends tous les jours sur la route. Virenque.
It must be a marvellous feeling. Well, 143 survivors are saying goodbye to Morzine and France. We're now heading into Freiburg and Switzerland. It's time to move on yet again. Just one more inside, Paul.
Okay.
You know, the Tour de France is the greatest mobile sporting show in the world. Every day it transports 3,500 people to their next destination. And of course, we're no exception. Today we're leaving Morzine, we're heading off into Switzerland. But we're leaving behind us here 3 marvellous days in the Alps, 3 days which have left us with great sporting memories and great scenery. And you have to admit what a beautiful country France is and what a great bicycle race the Tour de France is. Here we are now, we're on stage 16. It's 181 kilometres this stage. And again, we've got riders going out on the attack looking for a victory.
Well, that was Pierre Bon and Frank Vandenbroucke trying to go clear and be the first riders to get into Switzerland because this is the Pas de Morgin. Looking very comfortable, though, in his polka dot jersey, Richard Virenque. He knows he's got the King of the Mountains competition sewn up, but I think in the back of his mind he must be thinking about this final climb of the Tour de France, the Col de la Croix, because 1 or 2 riders, I think, don't expect it to be quite as hard as it's going to be.
And this is Erik Zabel. He's come through the mountains very well indeed and can now really dream of winning his 2nd green jersey, the Maillot Vert, when we get down to the Champs-Élysées, which isn't too far away now as we start the final week of the Tour de France. It is an absolutely idyllic day today. This link road taking us away from Morzine and France into Switzerland, I think, is one of the prettiest roads the race ever uses.
This is the Col de la Croix, and already the rider's starting to put the pressure on, and the pressure coming from Marco Pantani. And I think what he's trying to do, really, Phil, is get rid of Bjarne Riis, because he can feel if he can get a big enough gap over Bjarne Riis going into the final time trial, then the podium and 3rd place in Paris is certainly going to be for him.
Well, Bjarne Riis is confident he can handle Pantani in the penultimate time trial the day before the race finishes, and of course he is a better time trial rider, and so Pantani is using today his last chance. This is the climb of the Col de Croix. A lot of riders have been talking about this climb and saying it is difficult. It comes at 92 kilometres and Pantani is disturbing everybody again.
Well, in the early part of the stage, in fact, Bjarne Riis was put in difficulty. He was in the 2nd part of the main field and had to fight his way back just after the Pas de Morgin. And here, you know, Phil, I actually can't see him in this group at the moment, and it's looking very difficult. As we look back, I can see a pink jersey, but that is Udo Bolt. And making a head count there, I think Bjarne Riis is missing.
I think he's in big trouble here. Pantani knows it. He's had a look over his shoulder to see what's going on. He's got the 2 boys who usually stay together, Virenque and Ullrich. They're riding quite solidly. And tacked on the back is Udo Bolts. Escartine is here as well. Huge crowd on this climb. It is a long, difficult climb, this. It's a hard way to say goodbye to the Alps because although we're in Switzerland, we're still in the same mountain chain, and this is only a 1st category climb. But just look at the people here.
Well, it's interesting to see one man in the lead group here. In fact, it's Frank Vandenbroucke. He was in that early breakaway over Pas de Morgin, and he survived the day. And if he can just get over the top of this climb, well, he's in with a great chance of stage victory. But Bjarne Riis, wearing number 1, well, I don't think he's going to remember this Tour de France with a lot of good emotions.
He takes the bottle there, and a little bit of an illegal push off the hand as well, but the judges might turn a blind eye to that if they were present. But it's no doubt he is in difficulty on this climb. He's not enjoying the climb at all. There are rumours beginning to circulate amongst the riders that he is quite ill, but even so, he's still in the Tour.
Well, this is the leading group of 7 riders who formed on the slopes of this climb. Leading them over, in fact, is the Spanish rider Gonzalez.
Just behind there, I think it was Stefan Oehler and Tocznik. They were the 3 boys over them. Tocznik is the champion of Austria. He's the watchdog today for the Telekom team. And there's a fine piece of artistry out on the highway. Remember, we're on the Swiss side now, and they still love the Tour de France. Now, these riders are climbing the col, and they're running it just on 2 minutes behind that leading breakaway, which was going clear on the climb of the Pas de Morgin. And he's still clear, but Riis now is in terrible trouble because he's almost 4 minutes behind the leaders on the climb. Look at the state of Bjarne Riis here.
Well, I think his concentration has gone. He felt, in fact, that the Tour de France was over once he got to Morzine, and I don't think he thought about this climb of the Col de la Croix being anything but just a simple formality.
Now, further down the rank, Virenque and Pantani are going over towards the summit anyway, just on 2 minutes behind the breakaway. But, of course, they're not too concerned by the riders in that breakaway. They won't affect the overall situation at all. There's the clock counting down. That was Gonzalez who went over first. 1:46 is the official gap.
But they have put, in fact, the yellow jersey into a little bit of difficulty over the final kilometre here. He's got Udo Bolt to help him, but he's going to have to do something special on the downhill, and we know over the last few days that's certainly not been the area where he's been very good.
Well, he's looking for about 15 to 20 seconds as they make their way down. Pantani and Virenque are superb descenders in the style of the old and great Greg LeMond. When he won his Tours de France, he was a good descender as well.
Well, it takes a lot of nerve and a lot of courage and also a lot of concentration to go down these descents as quickly as that. But you can see a little bit of panic there for the yellow jersey, trying to move forward in the line. He realises he has to do something to try and pull the Tour de France back together, because at the moment, Phil, apart from Tocznik, who is in the front, and Udo Bolt, who's alongside him, there are no Telekom riders anywhere near to help him out.
So the chasers are regrouping. They've got the leaders to catch. And as we say goodbye to the Alps, let's join Gary Imlach to remind us what we've left behind.
You know, while the riders were pounding out the kilometres towards Alpe d'Huez the other day, we were engaged in an endurance test of our own, a day in the thick of the crowd waiting for them on the mountain. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Alpstock. No longer just a stage on the Tour, Alpe d'Huez has become an event on the international itinerance calendar, like running the bulls at Pamplona or the Munich Beer Fest. It combines elements of both. This year, the multinational crowd was swelled by the Danes. Bjarne Riis didn't play the Alpe on his 1996 European Tour, so this was their first chance to catch it live.
Riis is the best!
The atmosphere is incredible. Music, dancing, fantastic.
Crazy, totally crazy. I haven't seen anything. We was in Andorra. It was not a bit like this. This is totally insanity.
The place seems to have been taken over by Danes.
Millions and mad Italians as well.
Yeah. I think if you're a burglar, you should get yourself across to Denmark just now, because all the houses are empty because they're all down here. There's thousands of them.
At least some of the insanity in evidence was probably down to the day's unofficial anthem, a song for Europe, if stupidity ever becomes the single currency. For the crowd, it was an endlessly versatile number, equally suitable for encouraging passing cyclists, greeting the publicity caravan, or marking the departure of one of their mates in an ambulance.
There's that song when I get remind me of. Everybody just seems to enjoy themselves. Just get on with it. Good fun.
Inside the beer tent, a few stone-faced purists were actually watching the cycling, while outside it was becoming clear that the crowd had peaked too soon, and by the time the leaders arrived, they had nothing left to give. The Indian chief did stay with Pantani briefly, but after offering half-hearted encouragement to the stragglers, the rest of the crowd decamped to the tent for the finish. Race over, there was one last airing for the song that's probably #1 in Denmark, Luxembourg and San Marino as we speak. Then began the mass exodus, with promises to meet in Munich or Pamplona, or maybe next year on the Alp.
Well, that's certainly the place to be if you want to feel the full atmosphere of a visit of the Tour de France. Well, the race has regrouped at the front now, but Bjarne Riis is not with them. He is wallowing some 4 minutes behind, Paul.
Well, that's quite remarkable. I don't think you would have expected that on a nice little ride into Switzerland, because, you know, he did feel that he was going to get third place in the Tour de France when the final time trial was around Disneyland, but I don't think he would have expected to have lost as much time as he has done today.
He didn't count on a rather active Marco Pantani, who made the most of that last big climb, the Col de la Croix. So often when the big climbs are at the beginning of the stage, they don't mean too much. But this particular day, it was the last serious climb for Pantani to go to work on. Now he's in the front group of some 23 riders, and he's distanced Riis, and there he is.
He doesn't look very happy at all. He's not got any mates in this group with him to try and pull it all back together. And I really do think that he lost concentration. He felt confident. We're going up to Paris will be an easy job, but he's going to lose an awful lot of time before the finish here in Freiburg.
Well, there is the front group, and all the men that matter are here. All the regular leaders of the Tour de France at least have found their way up into this group. And Pantani, the troublemaker, is still using his team to keep the pressure on. He now wants big time over Bjarne Riis.
But Abraham Alano's team has come to mix it at the front as well, because he's thinking that he too can close a little bit of a gap on the podium, and he may well be able to do something special and dethrone the little climber Marco Pantani in that final time trial. So for the first time, we're really seeing a very strong and dedicated Banesto team.
So two teams driving with just cause now at 5 kilometres to go. Banesto and Mercatoni Uno. There's Jimenez, the champion of Spain, passing through. And these are the riders now of Banesto who are really driving this race on, working for Alano instead of, in years gone by, Miguel Indurain.
This is the final little climb just coming into Freiburg. Roberto Conti on the front here. And I would think if any man felt confident, now would be a great place to launch an attack, because this climb then just drops straight down into the finish, and at 3 kilometres to go, and it's an ideal launch pad.
There's a little bit of a nasty right-hand turn when we go into the railway station, with about 1 kilometre to the finish in Freiburg. It's another town which hasn't seen the Tour de France. It's got a lovely wide finishing sprint once you have got round that right-hand bend. And so a rider who's prepared to take a little risk could steal the show here. And having said that, now it looks as though we've got one rider having a dig. Is this Kepi Gonzalez?
Well, it's either Kepi Gonzalez or Fernando Escartin. They both look very similar, but it's definitely the Kelme rider who's coming into the tunnel with about 1 kilometre left to go.
There's the swing, and now as he lines up, I think it is Kepi Gonzalez, but the race is pouncing on him here. Dufault gets in first, and Festina. They've got themselves back under control once again. There are no real sprinters in this breakaway, none of the sprinting power of Erik Zabel, so there will be a lot of riders here who will feel they can take this stage out.
A very strange finish it should be too. The man a little bit earlier at the back there, Frank Vandenbroucke, he should have a good chance, but he's been in the breakaway for an awful long time. But I think, you know, Richard Virenque feels his chances are up today.
Well, he's using all of his Festina team. There are plenty of them in this group. They really have been a great team in this year's race. Virenque's got second place. I've just seen Pantani taking a dive, and I think Casagrande saw it as well, the rider in the red. And now, as they start sprinting for the line here, they're now trying to make the best of it. Udo Bolt is also digging deep on the left of our picture. Pantani off to the left as well. This is going to be a very tight sprint indeed, but this is Christophe Mengin who's coming up, and he's going to take it. So he gets the big win for the new French team, La Française des Jeux. And they are going to be delighted with him for that. In fact, Stefan Erlo also punching the sky as well. This is how Menjan has done it. Richard Virenque was locked right in there, so he proves himself as a sprinter as well, because as he crosses the line, he snatches third place. I think the big loser there was Frank Vandenbroucke. That's the second place he's had in this year's Tour de France. The other one coming when Erik Zabel got the better of him in Plumelec. Going back now some 6 minutes here to the next group, and that is the sort of time that Bjarne Riis is losing. He's tucked at the back of this group, and so I think, Paul, he's going to say goodbye to his third place now in the Tour de France, and Pantani will feel very, very happy with the way his day has gone.
Certainly Bjarne Riis not happy at all with his performance out on the course, because, you know, he felt that he was going to come back to this Tour de France and win it, and then he felt confident that third place was within his grasp, but at the end of the day he lost a lot. A big surprise, and I think a happy day for Marc Madiot of the Française des Jeux, because his man Christophe Menjan gave them their first victory. Frank Vandenbroucke, great ride by him to get second, but Richard Virenque still in there with third place.
And looking further down that list, Alano also up there. All the big names made it except Bjarne Riis. And the next stage now, stage 17, taking us out of Freiburg to Colmar, which is back in France. And today is going to be a really special day for Jan Ullrich, because just across the borders in Germany, he lives about 20 miles from the finishing line of the stage. A ride of 218 kilometres this, and once again the race under pressure as the breakaways are continuing.
Well, the break started from the very word go this morning. Everybody knew there was a great chance of success. They went out and launched attack after attack until finally this one managed to form at the front. And there you can see a man always good to go in the breakaways, the Aussie Neal Stevens.
So Stevo at the front, and Tocznik is in here as well. But as I said to you earlier, as this breakaway speeds now towards a stage finish in France, everybody from Germany will be looking for one man in yellow, Jan Ullrich, and the reason being because his village is not too far away from the French borders, although Ullrich himself is originally an East German rider, one of the old regime. He's now, of course, a German rider. So the race under the control here of the GAN riders, because they're trying to get a stage win out of this, while we send Gary Imlach not to France, not to Switzerland, but in fact over the borders and into Germany, just to get a sample of life in a certain village where a certain future winner of the Tour de France comes from. Let's join Gary Imlach.
We're across the German border from the race in Jan Ullrich's village, Merdingen. It's only a small place, but last year the locals turned out and gave him a big welcome after he placed second in the Tour. This year, of course, they should have even more to celebrate. And having already done the homecoming parade in '96, this time Jan's home decided to go to him. 3 coach loads, about half the entire village, gathered outside the local cycle club HQ this morning, along with 4 coach loads of press and TV to cover their departure. Guest of honour was his mother, who'd made the journey from the family home in Rostock, along with most of the family.
Das ist my brother.
Ja, Martin.
Der Martin. Der hat sonst eigentlich nicht solche Haarfarbe. Man bemerke mal, hat sich die Haare für den heutigen Tag gefärbt. Ist sonst dunkelhaarig. Ist nicht ganz gelb geworden, aber es sollte gelb werden. Es ist überwältigend hier. Ich komme ja nur gar nicht vom Platz hier weg. Dieser Empfang hier in Merdingen, und schon als wir ankamen hier, wir haben unser Auto auch ein bisschen geschmückt, entsprechend, dass man uns auch als Fans erkennen kann. Da kamen die Kameras, und ich meine, bis jetzt hat das hier auch noch kein Ende genommen. Es ist wirklich, ich weiß nicht, wie der Jan das aushält, diesen ganzen Rummel. Echt, also das ist wirklich sehr anstrengend, aber auch sehr schön natürlich.
With a destination board reading Jan, get your foot down, the Ullrich convoy headed for Colmar, Jan's girlfriend Gabby having already gone ahead to avoid the media circus. When her boyfriend's racing, Gabby gets slightly less time with him than the Credit Lyonnais girls. But then Jan didn't get this far this fast by socialising. He started racing at the age of 9, which by the look of him could have been last year, and at 19 he was world champion.
Die Fahrer kennen Sie, die weißen Trikots der Letten. Ganz links das weiße Trikot von Jan Ullrich, dem Weltmeister. Meine Damen und Herren, eine Sensation.
Well, I think you probably get the gist of that. And by becoming world champion at the age of 19, Ullrich was emulating the man who currently makes his bikes, a decent rider himself in his day.
Jan Ullrich ist auch mit 19 Jahren Weltmeister geworden, wie Sie damals. Was halten Sie von dem Fahrer Jan Ullrich? Wird das mal ein ganz großer?
Ja, natürlich schwer zu sagen. Die Zeit ist natürlich ganz anders.
Aber ich denke, jetzt geht nicht mehr so schnell. Wenn man jung ist, muss man etwas länger warten, um an der Top zu sein.
Ja, mich schweigt es natürlich schon mit so Leuten wie Eddy Merckx oder Dietrich Thur verglichen zu werden. Ich denke mal, mit 19 Weltmeister, das ist schon gut. Aber ich will jetzt versuchen, noch weiter hochzukommen, sprich irgendwo Olympiade mal zu gewinnen oder bei den Profis wirklich mal die Tour irgendwie mitzufahren und gut zu fahren. Und da arbeite ich drauf hin und werden wir sehen, ob ich dann wirklich so gut werde wie die, mit denen ich verglichen werde jetzt.
4 years on from that interview and only 3 after turning pro with Telekom, Ullrich is living up to the comparisons. At 23, he's the same age not only as Merckx when he won the first of his 5 tours, but also Jacques Anquetil when he won the first of his 5. Anyone with a feel for cycling history and a few bob to spare could have done worse than put an accumulator on at Ladbrokes. Whether the long hours of training on the steep roads around Merdingham eventually rank him with the greats remains to be seen, but barring disaster, win number 1 is definitely in the bag. I warn you though, if he underlines that win with a stage win today, the cycle fans of Merdingham may feel compelled to give us a reprise of this.
Oh, Jan Ullrich, du bist der Champ. Ja, das weiß doch jeder, der dich kennt. Nicht gut?
Well, I guess it should be a win for Ullrich today, but here he is trapped in the main field at the moment, Paul, and that breakaway which contains Neal Stevens and Laurent Roux, they've got quite a way ahead now.
And thanks to Bobby Julich, because I think the pressure he's put on the breakaway, well, that's going to stop us from hearing that song at the finish.
Well, there's a relief to everything, I suppose. There's the gap, 2 minutes 50 seconds now. This breakaway really getting itself together at around the 70 kilometres point. Neal Stevens was first over the top of the Col de Pierre-Pertuis at 61 kilometres. Garmendia was just behind him. Uchikov, and there he is. He got across, and gradually it swelled until we finished up with 13 men out front.
I think the main field today have laid down their arms because they're not too worried about what's happening at the front of the race. All they're worried about now really is getting to Paris without too many hitches.
Well, that long straight road there doesn't help either. They couldn't catch a sight of the men. They're well clear. Somewhere around about 4.5 minutes at the moment at 10 kilometres to go. So very shortly they can start working out how they're going to attack one another, because really it is such a big group. The Telekom are trying to chase it down, but they're not giving it the wholehearted chase here. They're just doing the job as being on the leading team.
3 minutes and 10 seconds is the gap, so I think with that 10-kilometre flag having gone by, they're not going to see these 13 riders in the lead, and it's going to be a very tactical finish, I'm sure, with riders from the Rabobank team there looking for a stage victory. And Bjarne Riis looking a little bit more composed today in the slipstream of his new leader, Jan Ullrich, and he'll be looking for all of his supporters at the finish line. But I don't think it's going to be another stage victory for Erik Zabel. He might have to wait for just a couple of days.
Well, there are more chances for him as we're getting away from the mountains now. We go into the Vosges for the next couple of days. After that, it's flat road. But again, the attacks are being launched thick and fast.
This is Peter Farazijn of the Lotto squad. He thought he could get clear, and there's been no reaction at all, so he may well have just timed it right. They're all over the road, but in fact, 2 riders starting to come across to the Belgian, so it may well all come back together once more.
Well, this is what was bound to happen. The pressure would go on. They wouldn't take a big bunch of 13 men all the way to the line. Farazijn is one of the strong single-day riders in the Lotto squad. Lotto hasn't had a great tour at all because, remember, they lost Jamaldin Abdu-Japarov very early on when he gave that positive drugs test. And he's gone from the tour, and they've had nothing to really shout about at all. The race is regrouped here. Tocznik is also mixing it in there. And another attack down the outside. Looks like a Festina rider having a go.
That's Neal Stevens there going along, the blonde-haired Australian on the Festina squad, switched over this year, having spent a number of years on the Once squad, and it looks very much to me, Phil, as if he's actually got the gap.
Well, good for him. Neal Stevens is an opportunist. He's ridden at many breakaways. Remember last year when he overshot a roundabout coming into the finish at Villeneuve-sur-Lot? He was in a breakaway then, Paul. I think it was 6 riders. He blamed the mechanic, but really he went in too fast.
He certainly did. He was trying to chase down Podenzana, who is riding in this Tour de France, riding for the Mercatone Uno squad. But I'm sure going round these corners, Steve-O's thinking all of the time about that accident in that roundabout, because there is a little bit of dampness on the road surface here.
Well, Podenzana actually is in this breakaway as well. And so there's a little bit of irony for you. Steve-O has gone. He's got 2 kilometres to go. It's a long way, but because that group is so big, they might hesitate just enough for Neal to get away. He's never won a stage of the Tour de France. He is really one of the nice guys of the sport. The big riders love him. He's such a workhorse. On Once, he was the #1 super domestique. He's come across now to Richard Virenque and Laurent Fignon on the Festina. Again, he's done more than his lion's share of the work in this Tour de France. As Camazin, the champion of Switzerland, tries to go after him, he may have left it too late. And Neal Stevens, well, I tell you what, if he won today, Richard Virenque and the boys would give him a great night out.
Well, that's quite remarkable, you know, for him to go out there, because Festina have had a marvellous Tour de France. I don't think they were expecting any more stage victories, but Steve-O now being chased by his former teammate here from Once, Aitor Garmendia. But time's ticking by, and I think Steve-O's going to get it.
I think even Garmendia knows he's not going to get across now. This is going to be a very emotional moment for Neal Stevens of Australia. He never gives up trying. He was once beaten into Montpellier in a 2-man sprint by Rolf Sorensen. This time, though, the sprint is right behind him, and he has all the time in the world. And that's for the baby, which his wife has just given birth to as well. Neal Stevens is the champion today. He gets the stage win here in Colmar. And there'll be quite a long wait, I think, before the field comes in. And there he is, Neal Stevens crossing the line, all smiles. This is probably going to go down as one of the finest moments in the sport for Neal. He's been a pro a long time, around 14 or 15 years he's been a professional bike rider.
I always knew that I was capable of getting up there and winning a stage. And today, when I was getting towards the finish, I just couldn't believe my luck. You know, I was feeling really good, but I wasn't really nervous at all. Once I got on my own, about 3 kilometres to go, I didn't take any risks on the wet corners with the zebra crossings, and I had enough strength to get to the finish.
Now, with about 1 kilometre to go, you looked over your shoulder. Did you know you'd got it then?
Yeah, once I got to about 400 or 500 metres out, I looked at the bunch who was behind me and looked at the finish. I thought, well, I'm closer to the finish than the bunch is to me, and so I thought I got this one, and I did the right things. I did my shirt up. I made a little sign to say thanks to my wife and thanks to my baby for putting up with me, basically. And it's a great day. It's a great day.
And the main field are coming in some 3 minutes plus behind Neal Stevens today, although it won't make any difference at all to the overall classification. And so, as they come in, they're fighting out 14th place. Erik Zabel, the man who's finishing it off, he's 3rd place here. This is led out by Christian Hen. And this will just be a few more points in the bag for that green jersey competition. He's about to get a challenge coming up on his shoulder there. I think it's Traversoni who's taking him on, but it won't matter. Zabel gets it, and almost 4 minutes the gap. So the result of the stage, and it makes happy reading for the Australians. Neal Stevens, only the 2nd Australian ever to win a stage of the Tour de France, ahead of Camazin, Ekimov and Laurent Roux. And this surely a very proud moment for him. He's on top of the pile. All smiles for Neal. Overall, though, Jan Ullrich keeps all of his lead, 6:22 ahead of Virenque, and he can go and visit the family now just over the border. 7th place for Bjarne Riis, but 18 minutes back, this man, and nobody would ever have thought that.
175 kilometres from Colmar to Montbéliard, but Neal Stevens is about to get a new teammate on Festina.
And the talk here in the village this morning in Colmar is about the huge fee that Alex Ullrich has commanded for leaving the Once team at the end of this season and joining the Festina squad of Richard Virenque. They say over the next 3 years he will earn the best part of £3.5 million. Well, this is the time of the year in the Tour de France when the riders try to impress and the managers might look to strengthen their squads. So we gave Paul Sherwin an unlimited budget and told him to go out and name his team for 1998.
Well, the Village Depart is a very good neutral meeting point for riders and managers from opposing teams. It's here that very often the deals are done for managers trying to put together their teams for the following season. Now, a great team is made up of a leader, a climber, a sprinter and 6 excellent workers. Now, if I were to go out and put together my ideal dream team, it'd look something like this. The top man has to be Jan Ullrich. At 23, he's certainly here to stay. The cost, a cool £1.5 million. My climber would be Marco Pantani. Heading for 3rd place this year after so many injuries means next year he'll be even better. The choice of sprinter is more difficult, but I think I'd have to go for Mario Cipollini. He might not finish the Tour, but he'd certainly get a lot of press coverage in the first 10 days. Johan Museeuw would be the team captain. His knowledge of how to race is the best, and he'd make the tactical decisions on the road. The next man would be the tough Aussie Neal Stevens. The advantage of Stevo is that he can work for the team on the flat and in the mountains, and his experience is invaluable. From Spain, Jose Maria Jimenez has been this year's revelation. He'd play an integral part of the team in the mountains. Roberto Conti from Italy